to the Good Girl Confessional. I am your host, Sandy Lowries. And of course, the Good Girl Confessional podcast is proudly brought to us by WB40 Women Beyond 40 magazine, a platform for women 40, 50, 60 and beyond. And you can check us out at WB40.com. Today in the podcast, I am talking to a delightful woman who is funny, generous of spirit. She's just lovely. Her name is Sally Prosser, and she is a former television presenter, journalist, and news presenter who is now an incredible voice coach, as well as being like a company spokesperson, a keynote speaker. She has been helping so many people, especially women, to find their voice and to feel more confident in places like workplaces, having to present, eulogies, weddings, whatever it may be. She also has an incredibly funny TikTok where she does satirical news reading. It's very funny. She's fantastic. Please welcome to the confessional, Sally Prosser. Hello, Sally, and welcome to the confessional. How are you today?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Listen to that beautiful, beautiful voice.
Oh, you're too kind. The good people of TikTok, not all of them think that.
Well, we will get to TikTok in a minute, but of course, you have had this incredible career as a news presenter, reporter, and so that gorgeous voice of yours has really come in handy. So tell us about that side of your career, and then let's talk about what you're doing now.
Oh, sounds fantastic. So I suppose it all started back when I was 9 years old in front of the mirror with my hairbrush talking about the stories of the household. And I really loved speech and drama and did a lot of Shakespeare and performing in Eisteddfods. Studied journalism at uni and rang up the local radio station to come in and do some work experience in the newsroom. And I'll never forget when I did my first bulletin at 5:30 in the morning. It was like, "Good morning, it's 5:30. I'm Sally Prosser." And my boss at the time was like, "Look, Sal, it's not a Shakespearean monologue. Don't be too theatrical. You've got to think that people are just, at home getting the lunches ready and, relax a bit." So that was when I first started thinking about using my voice in a bit of a different way. And I went into radio and then into television, of course. And I suppose when you're doing it every day and you're using the deep breathing and using the resonance in your chest and also working on articulation exercises, I actually had a slight lisp and I was Sally Prosser 7 News for a while. Like that was a hell of a lot of S's. So I was doing all these exercises.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I guess like other professions, the voice is the tool of the trade for journalists. And people on television do make it seem a lot easier than it is.
You certainly do. I not long ago had the beautiful Tracy Spicer on the podcast, but she has such a
Tracy.
recognizable, beautiful voice. Oh, she's just divine, is she not?
And her book is amazing as well.
Incredible. Her book is phenomenal. But you have that same really beautiful kind of voice that just takes you along on a journey. It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. It's all about the airflow. So it's about breathing. It's not very coronavirus safe, really. It's like imagining your windpipe is like a hose. And this is why the voice is an incredible diagnostic, because if you're all like tense, it's like squeezing the hose. And if the air gets blocked or pushed back, then you get this kind of voice. You can get the crackle, or you can get that pushed back sound, or it can kind of go into the head like that and it can go up. But if you imagine it like that beautiful channel drawing from a well in your stomach and you're pouring your beautiful voice over people that you're speaking to, then anybody can achieve that nice flow.
Oh, how beautiful. Or you could be recovering from COVID like my good self and you could sound huskier than you really are. It's always joyful.
A little bit sexy.
That's what I keep telling my partner anyway. Sally will run with it.
Yeah, run with it.
So, so I mean, that's really fantastic. But now, because really you're an expert in this field, and you are now teaching other people, your voice coaching, and you're helping other people really to in their business and in their life to develop that. So, how did that come about?
Yes. So after I left television, I went into public relations. Often they'll say, cross to the dark side, going into PR, which I absolutely loved. And for about 4.5 years, I was in the PR team and being the spokesperson for a big water and sewage company. Yes, I was like the glamour girl for sewage, talking about what you should and shouldn't flush. It was pretty hilarious. It was also a time in my life where I was largely single. So like the dating conversation was a little bit off. With how much I, knew about sewerage. Anyway, so while I was there, while I was in journalism, I was always working with other journalists on the side to help with their voice, and I kept doing that. And when I was in a more corporate setting, I remember a meeting where somebody I didn't have too much to do with pulled me aside and said, "Sal, how do you always say what you want to say in meetings?" And I thought, oh, what do you mean? Because often I was going into meetings thinking, don't talk too much, listen, don't dominate. I said, what do you mean? She said, oh, look, I have my notes and I have these things that I want to say and I just feel like I can't find the right time and I'm not being listened to. And I said, oh, we can't have this. So we used to sit in the kitchen. I'd be like, all right, here's some tips. This is how you've got to enter. Enter low, enter with conviction, use a gesture, and from that moment, I started to realize that I had a real passion for helping people find their voice and communicate with confidence in any scenario, whether it be on the news or in a meeting or doing a eulogy or at a wedding or at a conference. And that I had also a lot of knowledge in this field from all of my training. And so I emceed a big water conference in 2018. And after that, the CEO of the company I was working for said, oh, Sal, you should go and do that full time. And I thought, oh, all right, let's go. I remember being back at uni and thinking, oh, can I survive on goon and 2-minute noodles? Yes, I was quite happy. Like, I think this is all right. Like, let's go. And never looked back. It has just grown and grown and grown, which has been so wonderful because I have, the best job in the world, helping people share their beautiful message. Everybody has such a beautiful voice in them, the voice being the organ of our soul, and such a valuable message to share. And being in the position where I can massage out some of those blockages so they can do that is just awesome.
So what's it like when you watch somebody, say, walk in with very little confidence in terms of public speaking? And we're not talking about people who want to speak for a career necessarily. We're talking about people as well, as you said, like at a eulogy or a wedding, or part of their job means they have to get up in front of a lot of people and do presentations. What's it like watching people walk in with very little confidence, to see them develop and to find that confidence in themselves?
Oh, it's beautiful. And I do work with people who are professional speakers, but the vast majority of people I work with are not. And as you say, they just want to be able to have the confidence to speak at their wedding, to do a couple of Instagram lives or promote their business or go on social media, or they're at work and they want to say, yes, I can go and speak on that panel. And what I really love about what I do is that it's just a couple of questions. Everybody has that inner confidence, and it's just guiding them to it. Because let's be honest, a lot of people have a pretty negative story when it comes to public speaking. If we think of like the first memory, often it's in a classroom where you're in front of people being tested by the teacher, where the teacher's like, slow down, don't say and ah. So a lot of people have these quite negative stories around speaking, especially there's a generation of the children must be seen and not heard, where speaking up has been a negative thing, where being quiet has been, something that served them in the past. And so much of it is unraveling that story and writing a new story where speaking is something to be grateful for and to look forward to, rather than bringing back these horrible memories of it not going so well.
Oh, I love that so much, because actually you've just really made me think that. So the Good Girl Confessional podcast, for example, the name came from it started as a blog, but now of course it's a podcast, started as a tongue-in-cheek reference to the fact that society, patriarchy, tells women, young girls especially, to be good, be quiet, be submissive, don't talk up, just don't be heard in a room. And I do think that's something in particular that women carry through their lives, unfortunately, where we see women being ignored in boardrooms and in meeting rooms because people are talking over the top of them, or they can't, as you say, I can't find the right time to express my point of view, and nobody's listening when I do. I think that, being able to speak for women is such a powerful and emotional thing in our life, to be able to get up there and say, I have a story and I want to share that story, or I am really good at my job and I want to get in there and share it.
Sandy, hell yes. And that's why I say diamonds aren't a girl's best friend. The diaphragm's the girl's best friend. Because if you can engage that diaphragm and really speak from within, it is so powerful, and it is tricky. Think about, we could do a whole episode just on this, but if we're told that we sound like a girl, it's usually in a negative context. You sound like a girl. If we're told we sound like a man, it's usually also in a negative context.
Yeah, absolutely.
You sound like a man, you sound like a girl. It's like, well, for God's sakes, you can't win. Who are we supposed to sound like? It's about sounding like us and knowing we can't please everybody. And times are changing, I hope. And a lot of environments are getting more and more used to hearing female voices.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's more challenging for us. We have to run a more narrow lane with communication, like everything else with leadership. If you're too loud and you're too abrupt and you clip all your words and you use big gestures and you keep in that low register, then you could get branded as being too aggressive. And again, this totally depends on your culture of where you're working. And then if you go to like soft and steady, like, so something I was thinking about was this, then you seem like you don't know what you're talking about, and you often, shut down. So I have a lot of professional women who come to me and they're like, how do I cut through and be heard? I feel like there's not a lot of room to play with. And, sadly in lots of situations that is true. But the podcasts like this, and you look at what Mamma Mia is doing as well.
Absolutely.
We're getting more and more women's voices on podcasts. And I actually saw something the other day about how Mia Friedman was saying when she started her company, how people were like, oh, no one wants to listen to women's voices. How yes, we do.
Oh, yes, they do.
And like how she also said that it was really niche, like women was niche.
But I still get that. And obviously because I have the Women Beyond 40 platform, and we have a magazine and we have the website and we have everything going on. And it's specifically for women 40, 50, 60 and beyond, although a lot of our readership are women in their 30s. And what's really fascinating to me is that when we first launched that and we were looking for advertisers or any sort of funding, and I was constantly knocked on the head because they said, no one wants to listen to the stories of women, but in particular, I can't see the stories of women over 40 really making their mark. That's what I was told, which put a fire under my ass, and which, of course, made me create the entire platform. Yeah. I think, right?
Well, you're having the last laugh now.
Oh, of course, right, because there's so many extraordinary women, and not every woman obviously comes on the podcast is in their 40s, your good self included. You are not yet there, but it's really for us was about sharing the wisdom, hard-won wisdom, I like to call it, of older women and saying to younger women, your time doesn't end when you hit the age of 40. In fact, it just begins again. Like you get to do all these really cool things, just like your good self. And I think like it's, it's quite an interesting thing, but I did see Mia's post, and I burst out laughing because everything she said is what I get.
Hello, Sandy here from the Good Girl Confessional podcast. The Good Girl Confessional podcast is proudly brought to us by WB40, a platform for women 40, 50, 60 and beyond. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you'd like to see the rest of the video, please head over to WB40.com and subscribe to WB40 Extra. By subscribing to WB40 Extra, you're helping to support the hard-won wisdom of incredible women. So thank you. Please remember to like, share and follow.